All right, welcome back to the channel. Errol Spence Jr. gets lied on by Oscar De La Hoya, and Oscar De La Hoya out here telling stories on Al Haymon. In his newest Clapback Thursdays, let's set the record straight in this video. Boy, you really got to watch people when they start telling these stories. Good thing that I've been a boxing fan for almost all my life. And good thing that I had paid attention to Oscar De La Hoya, the PBC Golden Boy promotions, all the way since they started, and even before that. So believe you me, when I listen to Oscar De La Hoya say that he was the promoter of Errol Spence Jr. and that disloyal people in his office waited for his promotional contracts with fighters to expire and then manipulate and steal his fighters from him. And that's why now Karma, the PBC, is going out of business. Now, before I get into that though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. And if you're a longtime subscriber and supporter, thank you. Also, thank you to everybody that supports and the super thanks in videos like this. Really and truly, it is a huge, huge thing for the channel. Thank you. So let's get into this. There were years ago, and I've got to give you this history so you guys understand what's going on. Oscar De La Hoya, in his Clapback Thursday, says that PBC is a sinking ship and that it is karma because of the theft that took place between Al Haymon and him that led to Al Haymon stealing all of his fighters, and how now that this is comeuppance, that he is now that the PBC is falling apart. Well, let's examine that for a second. Number one, almost everything that man said is not true. First and foremost, there was a lawsuit that was filed by Bob Arum and Oscar De La Hoya against Al Haymon, and it was thrown out. There was a settlement that was made between Al Haymon and Oscar De La Hoya about the issue that he's describing about his fighters. But what was the issue really? First of all, Oscar De La Hoya, from my understanding, and I'm telling you this, I got this from people that were signed to Richard Schaefer when he had Ring Star Promotions. What they said was that Oscar De La Hoya, first of all, he's a COKE head, and everybody knew it. Wildly out there, addicted, all kind of substance abuse problems, things that he will openly tell you about were taking place when he was the head of Golden Boy Promotion. And what he did was, in this fit of, you got too much stuff flying up your nose, what he did was seriously mismanage Golden Boy. And he never wanted, this is what I was told, he never wanted to invest his own personal money into Golden Boy Promotions. So he was really, for a while, just a figurehead of Golden Boy Promotions. And he was pretty much not asleep at the wheel, but he had that booger sugar. So he was on the booger sugar. And what happened was the following. Al Haymon signed fighters to exclusive managerial and advisory contracts. So every fighter that Golden Boy thought was signed to them was actually signed to Al Haymon. And without a doubt, and I've always said this, without a doubt, I believe that there were people that were disloyal to Oscar De La Hoya in Golden Boy, and people that did let those things go because they were like, hey, they may have known. Like, for example, Richard Schaefer was there at the time. And I do believe at the time there was also Steven Espinoza. These guys are working for Oscar De La Hoya. One is, I believe this to be the case, if I recall correctly. If I get any of the time frame wrong, the general gist is going to be good. Steven Espinoza, who I do believe was in-house counsel for him, and the lawyer, which was drafting the paperwork. And then you had Richard Schaefer, who was the guy that was running Golden Boy, who was openly saying to fighters that Oscar De La Hoya don't want to spend any money. So you get all of these fighters, but what? They don't want to spend money. So what do? Oscar De La Hoya doesn't want to pay them, doesn't want to pay the money. So what happens with Al Haymon? Well, Al Haymon signed some exclusive managerial and promotional deals. Since you don't want to pay, since you don't want to do it, that's going to allow them to go to whatever fight they need to go to and go to whatever network they need to go to in case you don't feel like paying their fight at any given time, Oscar. In order to be a promoter, you got to commit to the payments of the fighters and actually funding the development of those fighters. What I heard was Golden Boy had so many people signed because they had, this is hundreds of people. This is not just one or two fighters. This is not just 5 or 6 fighters. It's a lot of fighters that they had under managerial and advisory contracts and not promotional contracts. But because that Golden Boy had the platform and Al Haymon needed them to get fights, then they just worked on their cards all the time. But that system worked. So basically, that system worked for Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya had a lot of fighters. He had, from what I see, he had a lot lower overhead because he didn't have all of those fighters signed in promotional contracts where they actually had to put on a fight a certain amount of times a year. And they had to not only do that, they also had to pay you minimums. But if you do not have that agreement, then you're not on the hook. But if you have Al Haymon giving minimums, saying, I'm going to get you a fight for this certain amount of money, the minimum was actually sitting over there on the managerial side. So Al Haymon was free if you weren't going to work with Al Haymon or if you got funny because you on that booger sugar. These people had a nice safety route to go somewhere in case you blew up. And that's what reasonable people are going to do when you are running a company and you are zooting everything up. And so let's talk even after that. Oscar De La Hoya, through owning Ring Magazine, through hiring people like Greg Glazier, has had a grudge against the PBC consistently since then. They were able to work on the fight with Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis. But again, Oscar De La Hoya is, in my opinion, is never going to be satisfied because Oscar De La Hoya has his, in my opinion, and what I've heard, is Oscar De La Hoya has that promotional company so that Oscar De La Hoya can have something to do, something that's going to keep him famous, something that's going to keep him occupied and give him something to do. Right? That's not something that is going to be the main motivation or the main source of his income because Oscar De La Hoya is probably already sitting on $100 million from his incredibly lucrative boxing career. So basically what you had was not a bunch of disloyal people, not at least just they're disloyal. No, bro, you're out there zooted up. You're out there zooted up, man, and people got livelihoods. People got to find things to do. It's not people. I remember Golden Boy when Golden Boy was Golden Boy East or Golden Boy West, and you had Shane Mosley, and you had Floyd was fighting on all their cards. Just so you know, by the way, the only reason, one of the reasons that there is a Golden Boy is because Floyd Mayweather Jr. kept fighting on your cards. But you were completely ungrateful for him, completely antagonistic, completely disrespectful. Why? Because your ego is tied up because his ego is tied up into that promotional company. That's why that promotional company went from being at the top of the sport to being like the number 4 runner. Because he never intended to really grow it. But when it started growing, it grew beyond his capability to manage. People started looking at him like he's in crisis mode. So they say, hey, we got a lot of problems we got to solve. Number 1, this guy doesn't want to spend a lot of money. Number 2, we got a lot of fighters. And these fighters are only going to sign with us if they get minimums And they know how many fight dates they have. So how can we do this? Oh, don't worry about it. I'll do it. I'll sign them to managerial deals. I'll sign them to advisory deals. And I'll make sure that these guys get their minimums and they get the number of fights that they need. So they all they got to do is sign with me. I'll give them the benefit for that. Golden Boy gets the benefit of not having all that overhead on top of him or that responsibility out of him. Pretty much any fighter is plug and play. And if you don't want to give him a fight, you can send him on the bench without anything. See, Oscar De La Hoya wants to ignore the fact that business model worked for him as much as it worked for Al Haymon. The only problem was, from the outside looking in, obviously, was that this dude was all zooted up and doesn't know how to work with people and doesn't know how to create an organization that is going to be harmonious. It's the lack of leadership from Golden Boy that caused the decline of Golden Boy. And think about what Oscar De La Hoya spends all his time doing. He spends his time doing Clapback Thursdays, hating on people, bro. Now, I mean, it was fun when you're hating on Bill because Bill is very hateable. But man, you out here talking about cats that you tried to sue multiple times and failed, making these same claims. They actually balled up Oscar De La Hoya's lawsuit and threw that crap out. And they're a sinking ship. Bro, if they're a sinking ship, what are you? You literally got nobody. You got nobody. And don't take credit for Errol because Errol didn't fight with you. And you notice he didn't say anything about the biggest star on PBC right now, which is who? Gervonta. Oh, I'm sorry. And Canelo, because Canelo left you too. Was Canelo disloyal? Canelo was loyal. Canelo didn't jump ship and go to the PBC. Canelo was loyal and stayed to you. Stayed with you until he was like, nah, I'm out of here. And where did he go? Right over to Al, like the rest of them did. So, man, maybe it's you, Oscar. Consider this a clapback on Clapback Thursdays. That's my take on the matter. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.